2025. Wow. Um, it feels like time just continues to fly. Some days seem long, of course, but the years seem short as you go by. So we don't need to muse about that, I suppose, but hard to believe that it is 2025 already. So but happy to be here talking about the first release of Sage Intacct for 2025. And man, I tell you, there are a lot of nice new features and enhancements in this release. So, get as much information about these as you can. We're thrilled to be in front of you today presenting this stuff. But by all means, there's release notes inside the software. There's all kinds of things that you can take a look at to find out about these new features and functions. And of course, you are welcome to reach out to your favorite person at Dean Dorton, whoever that may be, or simply reach out to our support team at erpsupport@ddavtech.com to get more information about any of these features. Nikki will be following up with the slides and some additional information about this. And one last thing before we jump in, you guys are getting the very first look, and I was excited to see this today, but you guys are getting the very first look at the brand new PowerPoint branding for Dean Dorton. So this is new. I kind of got a sneak peek of it here and love what Nikki and her team have done with the branding and the way that these little PowerPoints are laid out. So thanks for that for the marketing department. So let's go ahead and jump in. Let's take a look at what we're going to do today. So here's our objectives or our agenda. We're going to go through really kind of the core modules. So we're not, we apologize if you're here for brand new construction features, for example, and you're looking for those. We're not really going to cover those today. Some of these things may relate to that, and we're not saying that we're leaving your company or your industry out. But we are going to focus on the things that really apply across the board to most of our, if not all, of our organizations that we support. So here's a little bit of a look at what we're going to be talking about today. Unfortunately, here's a slide with my picture on it. Not my favorite headshot that I've ever had, but hey, you do what you can with what you got to work with, right? So I am happy to be in front of you today talking about this. So let's jump right in. Sage Fixed Asset Management. So this is the Fixed Asset Management module as a plug for an upcoming session that I'm sure Nikki will also be letting you know about very soon if you don't already know. We are having I'm not supposed to call it the shootout at the Fixed Asset Corral or the FA Corral. It's the showdown at the FA Corral. Old school, I like the term shootout, but hey, it's a showdown at the FA Corral. We're going to take you through all the different fixed asset modules that are available with the Intacct platform. So be on the lookout for an email from Nikki or our team about that. This is the newer fixed asset management module, not the fixed asset module, the kind of original one from years ago. This is the newer one that's in the system that is really kind of a focal point of Sage now within the Intacct product line to get this newer module beefed up with a lot of the functionality across the board with the Sage fixed assets, the old Sage Intacct fixed assets, and some different things that might have been missing from both of those platforms. So there's a lot of exciting stuff going on with the fixed asset management. And quite frankly, again, if you're sitting there going, well, we've got fixed assets, but which one do we have? I don't know. Shoot us an email, reach out to your favorite person here, and we'll be glad to kind of work through it and talk through it with you. So what are we doing with this module? Well, we're now adding transfer capabilities within an entity. So utilizing the transfer asset feature to change an asset's allocation or dimensions. So if you're moving things around between departments, or if you're moving things around between any of your different dimensions, let's say you've got a piece of machinery that you're moving from one project to another. Let's say you've had a team member depart and you're repurposing their laptop and moving it to a different employee. In that, you can now do the transfers and also have a transfer history tab on the asset record that will list all transfers and links to the journal entry. So you've got that full traceability in it now for that fixed assets module. So that's a really nice thing to have. There are a couple of restrictions. So you can only transfer assets that are in the ready for review or in service states, right? That makes sense. It's, something that you're using and you're moving, you're repurposing, you're taking it, like I said, from one department to another, one project to another, moving it over to a different employee, anything like that. There are a couple of actions not currently supported, so you cannot yet transfer assets between locations. You can't reverse a transaction as it is. So if you said, hey, I'm moving it from this department to this one, a couple of weeks later, like, oh no, we didn't move it, then you go back and you move it back to the original. You cannot reverse or revert a transaction. And then you can't place an asset back in review after it's been transferred. So a couple things there just to keep in mind as you're doing this or working with this transfer asset process. You do need to do a little bit of configuration, fixed asset management configuration, and then make sure that you have the journal set up for transfers here, right? So make sure that you've got that journal set up, whichever one you want to use. You want to create a new one specifically for those, or if you want to use an existing fixed assets journal, you just have to stipulate here what journal that you are using. Okay. So that's the big thing in the fixed asset side. Over on accounts receivable, we've got some enhancements to the AR statements. You can add custom fields from customers and invoices to the AR statement. That's really cool. It's a checkbox on the printed document template setup screen to include custom fields. And then the custom field support area here, that's giving you some information on how to get to those particular objects. But, if you've got a piece of information, maybe a customer type that you've created for a special field or something else, licensing numbers, anything like that, that you might want to put out there, any kind of other external customer IDs or anything along those lines, you will now be able to include those on invoices and AR statements. So that's a very nice feature to have. I know we've had a lot of folks that have asked about that in the past. Increased capacity for larger statements. So customer statements can run in offline mode if the run exceeds more than 100. Support for higher volume of AR statement processing up to 2,500 customer statements. So giving you more an ability as one of the things that Sage and Intacct touts on a regular basis is just the scalability of the software. Well, if you've got that scalability and you can process and you can handle more transactions, then it's kind of been a limiter with the capabilities of the statement processing system, where some companies have had to break it out into different sections or components and run some statements at one time and some statements at another type of thing. They're really beefing up their capability across the system to be able to allow customers or companies to produce these statements for their customers in larger batches. So that's nice to see. So receive payment retirement. This was a little sad when I saw this come out. I will have to admit, somebody who has worked with the Intacct platform since March of 2011, so coming up on 14 years. I saw the new receive payment screen come in. It's, this new one down here a few years ago. I saw this come in, but I always just like the straightforward nature of this one. I guess that's kind of the one I was trained on and grew up on and stuff like that, and resistant to change type thing. So sad to see that go away, but it is time. It is time for that to go away, and let's focus on this new screen that fits the user interface better, that has that is a little bit more streamlined and should be a little bit more easy to work with and all that type stuff. So this will be going away in release 2, and this receive payments new screen will be the one that you have to receive payments. Okay. And accounts payable. So this is kind of nice. AP bill approval by vendor. So at this point now, inside of Intacct, you have an ability to assign an approver to a vendor, and they will be the bill approver for that vendor. So you've had, the AP bill approval policies, which is what you're seeing in the left-hand side screenshot here. You've had that for a while, but now you have an ability, if you can see it right here, there's a drop-down field on the vendor record now that will give you the ability to stipulate a bill approver for a vendor. And to make it easy for you, you can do it one by one on the vendor records directly, or you can update vendor records using a CSV import. So you don't have to tag them all. If you've got thousands of vendors, you can do it via CSV import spreadsheet and assign a bill approver to the vendors. Here's just showing the field in the spreadsheet. If you download a new vendor import template, you'll see a column called Bill Approver ID, and you'll just populate the employee ID that's associated with that vendor that you want to be the bill approver, and it will bring it into the system. Okay. Oh, let me go back one. So it is important to note that you do have to enable it in the AP bill approval configuration. So you do have to set to allow the vendor-based approvals in the AP configuration area to take advantage of that. Now, this is probably the one that I am most excited about in this release. I think it's really nice that this is finally hitting the streets, so to speak, within the software. I know it's gone through a lot of testing. I know it's been through a lot of iterations of, how the product works and what specifications are behind it exactly. But I'm thrilled to see that this is now in general availability for the product, and this is the AP automation with purchasing. Now, what are we talking about here? Well, this is the getting into the full three-way match process where you've got a purchase order and a purchase receiver, and then you're going to try to come in and do a match with a vendor invoice. Prior to this release, the only general availability for the AP automation was in the AP bill screen. It didn't reach back into purchasing. Now, with this particular functionality, you will have the ability to interact with purchase orders and receipts and things of that nature, that full purchasing module, that full three-way match with AP bill automation. Okay? So that is extremely exciting to have this into the software. The incoming vendor invoice will match to the PO or receiver in a draft mode. So just like, right, it's coming in now in AP bills and it's reading the bill and it's putting it in a draft mode and it's got all the information that it can get. It's now taking that extra step of looking into purchasing and trying to find purchasing related documents for this piece that it is bringing into the system to see if there's anything further back in the cycle that it can match to. You do have to set up a one-time mapping for incoming purchase documents in here, configuration of the purchasing module, right? And that is absolutely something that your favorite person at Dean Dorton could help you with. With that one, I would recommend highly, though, you shoot an email to erpsupport@ddaaftech.com. That goes through our support queue. That way, all of the folks on the team can look at it. If you do have a favorite person, address it to that favorite person, but still send it to ERP support. We'll try to get it to that person if at all possible. But if they are out and you really want to do this, then someone else could help you if you use the support email address. All right, so there will be an automated transactions list underneath purchasing now. So this is a new screen, a new view, a new list view inside of Intacct, and the incoming documents will default to draft vendor invoices in that list. They can be changed at any time before you post them, and they're going to flag previously uploaded files as duplicates. So that's great. If it senses you've got that same file and you just accidentally sent it in, or maybe the vendor sent it to you twice out of mistake or what have you, it will flag those as previously uploaded files. But they will come in as draft, and it will try to read those invoices just like it does now, and it will try to match them back into the purchasing process. It does all this through what we had talked about here just briefly on this screen with that one-time mapping and configuration, right? So you'll do that. You'll give it some guidance. You'll tell it where to look, what kinds of transactions to look at, where things might be coming from, et cetera. And then as it processes transactions, it uses that to then go back and search and find and try to make sure they're getting to the right transaction. When you're in edit mode, you can change the PO that it's assigned to, or remove or add the PO in edit mode. So you can change or edit the PO information and association when you are in edit mode of the transaction. So Intacct is not saying, hey, this is set in stone, this is what we see, this is where it is, etc. You will have that ability to edit the transaction. Draft vendor invoices can also be changed to AP bills. So if it happens to be that this isn't associated with a PO, then you just simply switch it over to an AP bill and it takes it out of that PO process. So I think it's very well thought through with everything that they've done with beta testing with those early adopters, right? So this has been one of those things that's gone through early adopters to make sure that, and probably for about a year or more, to make sure that the functionality inside the software is as good as it can be and meets as many needs as possible. They do put it through that fairly rigorous early adopter beta testing. So the user can check a box to always create transactions from this vendor in AP bills. So as you're making this change transaction type to AP bill, let's say it is a bill for rent, or it is a bill for utilities, or anything else non-PO related, you'll have the option here, and I'm sorry, these are small screenshots. Maybe you guys can see them good on your side. Hopefully you can. If not, you'll get the slide deck. But you'll have a checkbox here to always default creating transactions as AP bills for the vendor that's on this invoice that you're doing this for at this moment. So that'll be handy, right? Your energy power bills, things like that are going to come from the same vendor. You can switch this over and they'll go in as AP bills, not come in as POs, potential PO matching documents anymore. Email documents will default to purchasing transactions when the AP automation with purchasing is enabled. So if you enable AP automation with purchasing, everything is going to route into the purchasing transaction screen, that one that we showed you earlier, the automated transactions list. Everything's going to default into there. And then if it is an AP bill, you can change it over into an AP bill and set the preference on the vendor record as well. So you can do it with that checkbox at that moment, or if you miss the checkbox, you'll be able to go to the vendor record and stipulate a preference to create AP bills for the vendor as well. Okay. So there are a lot of, I'm really excited about this because I think there's a lot of uses for this full process of being able to take AP automation and move it into purchasing. So you're not just talking about the the utilities costs, the regular costs, operating costs of an organization. This is now pulling this out into having AP automation, machine learning, scanning, recognition of these invoices, and a much more automated AP process all across the board within the organization. You're being able to work with your suppliers and other vendors like that where you would normally do POs for, and this works within that process. If you want to take a look at AP automation, if you don't have it already, or if you want to walk through the process of extending what you have into purchasing, then I would highly recommend you send an email to erpsupport@ddaftech.com, and we would be more than happy to walk through it with you. If you are looking at the functionality and you're deciding whether or not to add it into your instance, that would be considered, a customer service type thing where we're working with you on the functionality. That's not a billable event. If you do get into the process of actually doing the implementation on it, then there would be some implementation hours there involved with that. But just to let you know, if you're investigating the AP automation as to whether or not you want to turn it on, then that's something we can definitely help you with, no charge, make sure it's the right solution for you, et cetera. Okay? So that's an exciting feature. Love the fact that they are rolling that out in more depth across purchasing, or at all across purchasing now, more depth across the entire payable scheme so that you're handling all aspects of payables. So supply inventory, it's a new application. So this is exciting as well. It is a new application within inventory control, but you can independently subscribe to it without needing full-blown inventory. So supplies inventory, it's there to easily distribute, order, and replenish items used to operate your business. Things like janitorial supplies. Let's say, hey, things people can't live without, right? Like coffee. It's intended for that supply management, not really for inventory where you're selling products and services. It does work with that. It is a part of that, but this is really sort of a subset of that functionality. It's used for operational supplies, things that you're not going to do. You're not going to use this for laptops where you might have depreciation and barcode tracking and stuff like that. And this isn't intended for inventory items that would be sold to customers. You can use this to streamline your request processes and sourcing for supplies. So if you've got a large organization and you're buying paper, you're buying staples, you're buying toner, you're buying coffee, all these other things, and maybe you're doing it across multiple departments, multiple areas. This is going to kind of has the ability to be able to let you manage all of those supplies inside of the Intacct software, where you can then have things like purchase orders and stuff like that to be able to get into and maybe get better deals and save money on the supplies that you are purchasing. As well as then all that would be in the Intacct solution. It would all be available for reporting. You'd have insights and dashboards and all that type stuff. So this is pretty exciting for what it can do for you for management of those supplies that you would have within your organization. So if you currently have inventory and you want to take a look at or enable the supplies inventory, then you just go to configure inventory control and you check the box. Now, I say you just go there and you check the box. I would recommend that you reach out to your favorite person here at Dean Dorton and say, hey, what are the caveats to this? What should I look out for? What kinds of things might I get in trouble with if I turn this on, right? Do recommend that highly. Don't just go check this box and start playing in production. For customers without inventory control, you can subscribe to it by going to subscription to the subscription page, and it's under inventory controls and then supplies inventory. Now, keep in mind, this is not a free module. So if you want to use this, there will be a cost. And if you go subscribe to it, you will get a bill. for it. So here in this case too, as well as in this one, I would say best thing to do, dial up your favorite person here, shoot us an email, something like that, and let's talk about it. Okay? Make sure you're making the right move before you check any boxes or do any subscriptions. So, additional things to consider, you'll need to complete some additional steps in inventory control, whether or not you want or actually you're going to have to enable the advanced workflows. You'll have to enable some costing. You'll have to enable supplies inventory. You'll have to enable some dimensions inside of the system if you don't already have those. So there are some additional setup steps that you'll need to do. You will need to enable MIV costing to automatically run updates nightly. So that's going to help keep the costing aspect of all of these things up to date within the system. And then you will have to do some work to enable different aspects of negative inventory inside the system as well, or disable certain aspects of negative inventory inside the system as well. So bottom line, this is here. There is a cost to it. The best thing that you can do is reach out to us if you're interested. We'd love to get you some more information. And before you go down the rabbit hole of checking boxes and playing with software, as much fun as that might be, we can give you some insight into whether or not this is anything that you actually do want to do. After you enable the supplies inventory, the system will automatically generate 3 transaction definitions. If you already have inventory or order entry or purchasing, you know what a transaction definition is. If you don't, it's basically just a way to process transactions. So by turning on supplies inventory, Intacct is going to create 3 transaction definitions for you. See some screenshots of those here. But these are mandated as far as turning on supplies inventory, and Intacct does it for you automatically. And then basically there's some setup for if there's some setup for the aspect of non-supply inventory and items and how they are tracked or not tracked inside the system that you would have to set up in your environment to make sure that it's tracked properly and it hits your GL correctly, and you're not inflating any numbers anywhere across the system. So again, there is no cost to supply inventory if you already have the inventory module. There's no additional cost if you have inventory control. If you do not have inventory control, there is a cost for supplies inventory. So this is in a nutshell, this is a version of inventory that is geared towards helping you manage your supply process. And again, these are things like paper, pens, staples, staplers, toner, coffee, paper towels, stuff like that. Supplies that are consumed within the organization, not inventory items that you are reselling. Okay. So regular or standard inventory control, some MIV costing updates. MIV stands for maintain inventory valuation. So this is a process that you can check a box and it will run through and it will make sure that your inventory valuations are not off within your environment. And basically here with new subscriptions, this is something that cannot be disabled. It has been in the system for a while, and it is a recommended best practice to check the box and let it run these items. And in new subscriptions going forward, it will be something that cannot be disabled. So this is just a costing update feature. In the company console. So let's talk about a couple of things in the company console. And actually, if you're in a gosh, the word just dropped out of my brain here. but in a multi-console setup, in a distributed setup, I should say. So you'll have a wizard now in the process for creating additional entities if you're working with additional instances within your environment. Most of our organizations do not have this, so that's something where it's not going to be a lot of you guys that are using this type of thing, but they are making improvements to consoles in those distributed type of environments. And mostly we work with organizations that would have distributed environments and really need this console when they have different types of calendars within an organization. So, for example, a restaurant group typically works on a 554 concept or 544 concept within their calendar as opposed to a standard month. And that is different. And if you have restaurants and you have other types of organizations in your company, then you could be in a distributed environment. So these are some things here that have been added into that. Console template creation, talking about here, removing accrual and cache. That is something, again, typically for that type of environment. Now, there is an ability, and Nikki's going to get some more information. We talked about this earlier. Nikki's going to get some more information out to you guys as far as validating these domains. But yeah, this is pretty exciting because this does give you an ability now to work. And I don't fully understand all this stuff. I know a little bit about it, probably enough to be dangerous, but this is going to better authenticate your actual domain with the mail that's processed or the email that's processed through the Intacct application. So if you have your own domain, and most organizations do, and you want to use that to correspond into and out of the Intacct application, especially out of, this is going to be something that will greatly improve deliverability of your emails. They won't get caught in spam filters nearly as much anymore. It's a really good enhancement. This is inside the company information security tab. You would add the domain to the list and click authenticate, and you'll take you through a process to authenticate that domain. And you'll have certain DNS information that will have to be authenticated in the process so that Sage can validate that, yes, you are the owner of that domain and it is legit for that domain to be there. Okay. And this is something ideally we're going to be communicating with you quickly. I know Nikki and I were talking about this just earlier. Tabitha's been working on it with Nikki as well. Tabitha's done a lot of the work with Nikki on this and getting you all out some information on exactly how this can and should be done for your group. And ideally, we want to take a look at doing this and getting this authentication and validation done soon. But you'll get more information on this from Nikki and Tabitha in the very near future. Make sure you're covered. If you have any questions about it, please do, again, reach out, ERP support, but there is more information coming as well. So you might wait for that. And then if you have any questions, simply respond back to that email. They are working on pushing out more enhanced list views. And there are some additional general availability for all of these list views inside of the 2025 release 1, generally available there, right? You can toggle between the old and the new typically. They're available on various screens, vendors, items, customers, employees, GL accounts, departments, standard places inside the system. And they really ramp up the functionality that's available in those screens. So you can see the top image here, that's the long standard screen that we have. And then down here is the enhanced screen. And you can see little things like little filtering icons here. It's more in a database type view or an Excel type view almost on your screen. So you've got more features. Things are just more right here at your fingertips to be able to both filter, drag and drop, um, freeze columns, sort columns, all that type thing. So if you haven't tried these yet, please do. And you'll see on your list screens where it's available up here at the top. It'll just say turn on enhanced list. Click that, and it'll switch you over, and you'll have a lot more functionality inside those list views. Whoops, I skipped a slide. I like these little slanted slides, part of this new design, so I don't want to skip one. So let's jump into General Ledger. General Ledger journal updates. Now you can disallow direct posting to journals. So in this example, you see on the screen, AP, the accounts payable journal. If you check that box, what's great about it is that you cannot then post a general ledger entry, or a direct entry, should call it a general ledger entry. You can't post a direct entry into the AP journal. It has to be something that is coming from the accounts payable module. Memorize transactions. If you check that box, memorize transactions will turn off for the journal, disallowing direct posting. Journals won't be available in the journal entry dropdown. As you're keying in a general journal, you can't say, let's code it to the AP journal. Nope, can't do that because that doesn't allow direct posting. We'll have to put it somewhere else. System will prevent direct postings via API or import as well. So that's key to know, and just a good reminder, the APIs, the CSV imports, all those things follow the business logic of the Intacct application. So if you're checking this box, then you are disallowing direct posting through all means within the application. Okay? And it's really intended, as it says here, to prevent reconciliation issues caused by direct entry of transactions. That way, you're scanning your GL report, you see the journal it came from, and you got 100% confidence that that is a payables transaction that was keyed into the system from accounts payable and not something that was directly keyed into the journal. So it's going to help with those reconciliation matters. Some new variance analysis reports. There's 3 new reports out there to help analyze actual versus budget. You can see these in the quick start library, as it says right here. This is the list of those 3. You'll need a GL permission to run these. That's in the security setup within your environment. And then some additional configuration for dimensional specific reports. Navigate to the filters tab, open the report, navigate to the filters tab and add a dimensional group. And choose budget at the column level. So you'll need to do these things if we're talking dimension specific reporting. So you're looking for, projects, you're looking for employee or team member information, departmental information, things like that. You'll need to take a look at these options in the system as well too. So new variance analysis reports in the system that you can take advantage of inside that quick start library. GL account regularization, which truthfully, before I saw this slide, I had no idea that regularization was a word. But I'm going to go with it because, Intacct says it. So I'm going to go with it. If you see it on the internet, it must be true, right? So to comply with different types of regional reporting requirements, you can set up regularization accounts. They enable customers to automate reclassification for compliance with local financial reporting standards. This is part of sort of the international expansion to a degree, but it's also accommodating some other aspects of, US type accounting, GAAP accounting, things like that. Certain countries have GAAP standards whereby those accounts must be classified in financial reports as liabilities, not negative assets. So not contra assets, but liabilities. So that's kind of what this is getting you into. In some cases, that classification depends on the account balance. So they're giving you some availability for that. But let's say, for example, you've got a cash account that is a regular account. It's set to reclassify to a liability account. You overdraw the cash account by 1,000. When you run the new report, it shows the cash account with a negative balance, therefore moves it into the liabilities section as well, reclassifies that to account 2001. So it's making these entries behind the scenes, draft journal entries, things like that, to make sure that you are presenting the information in your reports properly. And then, of course, it can do some things with reversing it to make sure that it gets reclassed back into its appropriate position, perhaps for that next financials run as well. So kind of a neat feature. If you need details on it, I'm not the expert on this one. If you need details on it, again, reach out to us. We'd be happy to run through it with you. But it is the regularization, which is a word I'm going to now add to my dictionary here, for GL accounts, and it is aimed at getting the amounts in the right spot on your financials through an automated manner and through a configuration that uses an automated manner to do that in your financials. So we're not changing your numbers. This is intended to present the information in the correct spot within your financials. And I probably butchered that whole thing, and I apologize. But here's an example type thing. So we're looking at, a cash account. And then when we overdraw that cash account, it then becomes a liability because it is an overdrawn cash account. So it's going to take some steps to help get that in the correct place on the financial. When it creates the entry, it'll be in a draft state, set to auto reverse. Any edits will also reflect on the reversing entry, and then you post it when you're ready. So that last thing there is also key. You post it when ready. This isn't something that is just going to, bam, make a lot of changes in your environment, but it's going to recognize the fact that, hey, this needs to be presented differently according to the regularization setup you've made, which I'm going to try to use that word as much as possible now, and will assist you with that process of getting your financials in the right manner. Okay, cash management, enhanced funds transfer early adopter, right? Early adopter. So I used the term before when we talked about the three-way match on the AP automation. Again, an early adopter, you are basically raising your hand saying, hey, this functionality would benefit us. We're willing to get into this early adopter, this beta type of process where we'll test it for you. We'll give you feedback on this. We'll help you improve this. We'll help you make it better. And that is a key. If you want to be in this program, you will have to give feedback to it. And your feedback may say, hey, man, everything works great. I don't see any need to make any changes. Or you may say, this would be better if it worked this way. So you do have to give that feedback as part of this program. But it's a nice opportunity to get to some functionality and be some of the first to be there. So we'll have support for up to 3 currencies in a funds transfer. You'll support inter-entity transactions. It applies to all cash management users in all regions. Eliminates the need for workarounds to process funds transfers across 3 currencies. So this is going to get into, again, some of that internationalization of the software, the exchange rates, the multi-currency. And if you're dealing with a lot of that kind of thing, then this might be a solution for you. And if you'd love to get more information about it, then send us an email right here at this email address, and we'll get you taken care of. So this is an early adopter for some enhanced functionality, in particular, mostly around multiple currencies, exchange rates, things like that. You are also now able to print Canadian checks in French. So you'll be able to print those out in French. Now, here's those two words again. So I've got a couple of things here. So early adopters, we've talked a little bit about this already, right? If you ever want to be in anything as far as early adopters are concerned, uh, let us know. ERP support at ddftech.com. We'd be more than happy to get you in there. Probably somebody like Tabitha would be the one, or Kelly maybe would be the ones to kind of help you get in there. But certainly reach out to us. And if you can't remember that email address, then yes, tag your favorite person at Dean Dorton. If it's Kristen or Dale or Luke or Tony or whoever it might be, reach out and somebody will assist you in trying to get into one of those early adopters. We can't guarantee anything. Sage makes the final decision on all these entrants into the early adopter, but we'll give it the best shot and try to get you in there if it's something you want to be a part of. And there are a good number of them in this release. We talked about the enhanced currency support for funds transfers, but there's also a really cool thing going on with consolidations and an affiliate entity dimension. Adding a new affiliate entity dimension to automate the tagging of IET journal entries across multiple entities. I can think of one customer that might do well to be in this early adopter piece, and we'll definitely try to reach out to them proactively and see. But this gives you an ability for another dimension called an affiliate entity dimension that you can use within the consolidation process. Lending management. This is a new application that allows users to manage loans from origination to payoff. It is an additional subscription. Don't know if they would charge you during the early adopter piece or what have you for that, but it would be a subscription, certainly when it is general availability. But reach out to us if you're interested in that. Terms discounts for taxes and accounts receivable, custom tax report creation, an enhanced currency report we talked about, and then the improved platform trigger creation for post requests. When I hear something like that, I think of Ian D'Amelio, maybe Brian DeRosa or somebody like that. But if you all are doing a lot of work with the API, this might be something that you would be interested in to take a look at. So if any of this stuff interests you, please reach out to us, grab somebody, ERP support, again, reach out to your favorite person. We'll get you in the right direction to get more information on it. And with that, we are down to the questions portion and just about at 50 minutes. So I think we're doing pretty good here. Nikki, do we have any questions?
We do have a couple of questions. So Grace asks, if you have multiple approvers for a vendor, when the vendor is shared across the organization, would we be able to address this through the approval workflow? That came in when you were talking about vendor AP approval.
Okay. So I haven't gracefully tested that. With what I've seen so far, I would have to say that it's a singular person. But Nikki, let's put that with the full team and see if that response is correct or if there's more to it than what I've been able to see thus far. So.
Perfect. And Kimberly also asked, in the case of supplies inventory for people to requisition, what's the impact on user licenses needed?
It should be the same. They should need employee licenses. It should be the same as what's needed for requisitions across the board, right? So it would be they would need at least an employee license to be able to go in and enter those requisitions.
All right, that does it.
But it would be with an employee license.
That's it for the questions in the Q&A. So if we have no more, we'll go ahead and end our session there. You probably all have learned the ERP support at ddftech.com email address by heart now. So if you have any questions, you can email that. Philip's information is here as well. And you'll get all of that information, the recording, and the slides in a follow-up email next week.
Thank you all.
Have a wonderful afternoon.